The time has officially come. The Detroit Lions have now officially said goodbye to Aaron Glenn as their defensive coordinator as he now flies to the Big Apple to become the Jets' new head coach. We're going to talk about it. Stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode, a third episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. Yes, my friends, it is now official. The Lions have, as we all suspected, and had been suspected for a long time, lost both their offensive coordinator, Benedict Johnson, and their defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn. And Aaron Glenn has officially signed and officially decided to go and become the New York Jets' next head coach. Now, let's talk about this decision. Let's talk about Aaron Glenn becoming a head coach. Like Benedict Johnson, highly thought it was going to happen this offseason. Should have probably happened last offseason, but the Lions got another year out of both of them. I'm going to say this. This decision by Aaron Glenn is kind of a weird one for me, considering kind of my, back and forth history when it comes to Glenn. I've been Aaron Glenn's harshest critic for quite a bit, but I finally got to a point where I was like, listen, considering all the things that Glenn's had to go through, how good this defense was this year, considering those difficulties, considering all those problems, I finally was like, listen, give Aaron Glenn his props, give Aaron Glenn his due. But the reason why I'm nowhere near as upset, if at all, about Glenn leaving versus Johnson leaving has not a damn thing to do with the fact that I'm happy to see Glenn go. It's not about the fact that I was upset to see Ben Johnson go, or, Benedict Johnson go, because I had already come to terms with the fact that both of them were going to leave this offseason. Rather, unlike Benedict Johnson's departure, Aaron Glenn did his with class, at least in a hell of a lot of comparison to Johnson. The reason why is because, again, as I've said before, I'll say it again now, Benedict Johnson did not even give a freaking, more than 48 hours difference between the loss against the Commanders to saying, oh yeah, you know what, I'm going to become the next Bears head coach. And then that traitor, he gets on social media and he's saying, oh, me and my wife, we've always wanted to be here. We're so happy to be here, putting on the Bears hat, saying bear down, and just absolutely acting like he is just the happiest man on the face of the planet. And it's like, man, you sure as hell forgot all the freaking things about how we were the ones that built you up. We were the ones who gave you the first opportunity to actually have any name recognition. Because, not to be too direct about it, there was a period in time where Benedict Johnson was sitting on his ass on a couch wondering if he was even going to coach again. And if not for Matt Patricia actually hiring him, and then Dan Campbell and Jared Goff giving him the chance to become the offensive coordinator, he would have been pretty much an afterthought and a bookmark in NFL history. But that was how he treated the Lions as soon as he got his opportunity. He literally didn't even wait for the blood from the loss of that game against the Commanders to dry before, I'm on to better things. Glenn, on the other hand, actually gave it a little bit of time, didn't automatically sign with the Jets when the opportunity was there. Because think about it, unlike Benedict Johnson, he didn't sign with the Jets as soon as he went there yesterday. He and Lance Newark, who's supposedly in the highest running to become the next GM, who also has connections to the Detroit Lions, was an executive here. I think it was for like 3 seasons while, Glenn was here as well. He left and then decided to announce today that he was signing, that was going to be the team he was going to go with. So again, to me, Aaron Glenn had a lot more class, had a lot more tact in understanding, okay, I don't want to look like I'm just trying to get the hell out of Dodge, or I'm just trying to say, oh, yeah, you know what? I've had my fun here in Detroit. Now it's my time to go out and get my money, get my opportunity. Because understand something. I get it. We are humans. We are always looking for better opportunities. We're always looking for advancement. But how you go about doing it is going to speak a lot higher and a lot more than just the fact of actually doing it. Let me put it to you this way. It's kind of how you say I love you to someone. I can say I love you very gingerly, very passionately, and that's going to give across one message. Or I can say love you very bitterly, very, angrily. And again, I'm still saying the same thing, but it's coming across a completely different way. That's in essence what's going on here between how Benedict Johnson left Detroit and how Aaron Glenn is leaving Detroit now. So for me, I have a hell of a lot more respect for Aaron Glenn and how he handled this whole process versus how Benedict Johnson handled it. Benedict Johnson literally was no class, no tact, pretty much was like, oh, hey, you know what? I had my fun and bye. Whereas Aaron Glenn was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a little bit more slow about this. I'm going to be a little bit more respectful. I'm still wanting to get a head coaching job. This is the best opportunity not only for me in terms of what I think I'm looking for, but let's also call it for what it is. There's a lot of familiarity. There's a lot of ties that Aaron Glenn has to the Jets. I mean, for crying out loud, they only drafted him in the first round back in 1994. So, okay, this is the place that gave you your start in the NFL as a player. They used their first round draft pick, put a lot of faith and trust in you back then as a player, obviously. And then they also were the first team that gave Aaron Glenn a job in coaching. So it's like, okay, you're the first team that decided to draft him in the first round. You're the first team that gave him a coaching job once his career was done in playing. And now you are the team that's going to give him his first head coaching job. So obviously there's a lot of firsts that come with New York in terms of the Jets. So it only makes sense from that perspective of, okay, there's already a lot of ties that already connect Aaron Glenn to the New York Jets. Whereas with Benedict Johnson, there's really no ties other than the fact of, well, Chicago's literally less than 150 miles away from Detroit. And pretty much, as I said in my previous episode, Benedict Johnson had pretty much already, put out his hand like, yeah, this is where I want to go. Didn't even make it, or try to attempt to hide it. He was just blatant like, I want to go here above all else. When you literally draw up a trick play that no offensive coordinator has ever even tried to attempt, and you attempt it in that opposing team's home field, and you specifically tell your quarterback, hey, we're going to practice it 3 to 4 times the week of the game, when prior to that Monday, it had never even been part of the playbook as far as a serious option. But again, for the Bears, in their home turf, you specifically want that play to be practiced and ran to perfection. So that way, not only the Bears organization, but the Bears players and the Bears fans, they get a prime front row seat to that. Yeah, again, Benedict Johnson, he pretty much sold his soul out, pretty much saying, please, I want to go to Chicago. I don't care how much I got to sell myself to get it. Whereas with Glenn, it was like, hey, I'm not going to sell myself. I'm going to let them come to me and see what they're willing to do for me. Because think about it. Like I said, the Jets, they're bringing in Lance Newark most likely to be his GM. There's also a connection there between those two guys because they work together here in Detroit. Only thing that really, Benedict Johnson has in, Chicago as far as a quote-unquote connection is DeAndre Swift. That's about it, which that's really not that much because DeAndre Swift, number one, is a China doll, and number two, we saw behind that absolutely porous offensive line, he's not a consistent 1,000-yard rusher. He's about on the same tier as Jamal Williams going to the Saints last year, and let's just call it for what it is. We know what Jamal Williams looked like in 2023. He looked like ass. So all I'm trying to say here is this. The move by Aaron Glenn to go to New York, it not only makes sense, it's respectful, or at the very least, much more respectful than what Benedict Johnson did. And on top of that, there's a lot more ties that make it a much more of a familial move than it is more about, oh, well, I just was looking for the best opportunity to make money and get what I was looking for as quickly as possible, rather than, hey, you know what? There's a lot of things more so than just, hey, this is what is the best option for me as far as talent, scheme, whatever. There's more of a relationship aspect here. For me, I think Benedict Johnson, he just bolted at the best option in terms of money and what he thought was going to provide him quick success. For Aaron Glenn, I think it was more about following the same pattern that Dan Campbell did. Because think about it here. Let me just wrap this up. Aaron Glenn is following Dan Campbell's example almost to a damn T. Let's think about it. Aaron Glenn is going back to a team that he played for, just like Dan Campbell did. Now, granted, Aaron Glenn is going back to the team that drafted him. Dan Campbell did not. But there's a lot of respect for the organizations that they went to. Both players that then became head coaches of those organizations, Campbell to the Lions, now Glenn to the Jets, they love that organization. They have very fond affiliation with those organizations. Then, on top of that, let's consider this little aspect. Both of these guys, as I just stated, they're former players. Dan Campbell, as I said in, a previous episode no more than a couple of weeks ago, I think, the Lions had pretty much restarted or reinvigorated the trend of, hey, let's hire former players to become head coaches to have more of a intricate player-coach relationship. Well, Glenn now not only becomes the second Campbell disciple to become a head coach, opposite of Benedict Johnson, but he becomes yet another former player turned head coach. So Aaron Glenn is being much more of a disciple, per se, of what Dan Campbell is doing, rather than Benedict Johnson, who I think is just following more his wallet and what he thinks is better for him in terms of success. Which, let me tell you something, for as disorganized as the freaking Chicago team has been, plus on top of the fact of how loud Chicago is in terms of its sports media, in terms of how impatient they are, and in terms of the fact that now all of the expectation is going to be on Benedict Johnson to get the best out of freaking Caleb Williams, you're not going to get a whole hell of a lot of time. If there is even a hint of struggling from you, and I'm referring to you, Benedict Johnson, you're going to see how very quickly the Chicago fan base and the Chicago media are going to turn you into the, conquering, arriving hero into the instantaneous scapegoat. Whereas with Glenn, yeah, New York is very much the same as Chicago, but I guarantee you this, nobody's looking at Glenn with the same expectations as people are looking at with Johnson in terms of Caleb Williams. Number one, because, let's see, who's the quarterback in New York? That's right, an aging, arrogant, freaking, stuck-up Aaron Rodgers, of which we don't know if he's going to stay there or not, or if the Jets are going to have to, go out and get their own number one overall quarterback. But I digress. That's a completely different topic. The whole point of this episode is to simply say this. Thank you, Aaron Glenn. Congratulations on your new job. I truly, sincerely mean that. We may not have always agreed. We may not have always had the best of circumstances, but I respect you and I appreciate what you did for this team, and best of luck in your new job. I know it's going to be difficult because, one, it's in the AFC, which, again, thank you for actually doing that, unlike your counterpart who decided to not only stay in the NFC, but decided to go with a rival. But on top of that, consider the fact that, if I recall correctly, you're in a pretty tough AFC division. Just saying. But anyway, I'm gonna end this episode and say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. Also encourage you all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, highly want to encourage you all, please make sure you hit that bell notification icon. Also want to encourage you all, please make sure you share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Share anywhere and everywhere you possibly can. The more we can share it, the greater the channel can grow and spread. And with that being said, whether it's your your first time watching me or the upteenth time watching me. Hope you not only enjoyed the content, but you got something new out of it. Also want to say, hope you all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, which, who knows, maybe for a fourth time today, I'll see you all in the next episode.